Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It is a great honor to introduce this next panel, which will be led by none other than Robert Stage, is the Future of Technical Repair panel. Robert, before you do the introductions, welcome back to the event.
Thank you very much, Ted. Thanks for having us on. I appreciate the time and the effort it takes to put these things together.
So you've done a lot of work in assembling this panel. I've seen Joshua, I've seen Russell and Marshall online, and you've got some great topics. So with that, I'm going to step out of the way, my friend, and I will let
Sure
you
thing.
take it from here, and I'll see you on the other side.
Sounds great. So we're going to start with just introductions to the audience. My name is Robert Stage. You've probably seen me on the Fix Ops Roundtable a couple different times if you've tuned in the past. I run Stage 1 Mobile Diagnostic and Auto Repair out of Columbus, Ohio. Currently, we're still taking on customers. Things are still going really well, and that business is growing. I've been kind of in tune and watching on LinkedIn recently and in the past 6 months or so, and have kind of happened upon Joshua, Russell, and Marshall, and keep in contact back and forth with them and interact with their posts and really enjoy what they put out as positive things in the industry. You're going to find out that they're across multiple industries, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get each individual person's perspective on what we're doing in the technical space as far as what we repair, how we repair it, and basically the inside of the belly of the beast, as it were, just so that people that look in from even that might work on the other side of the wall that don't understand or don't know what we do, I want to kind of give them a position where they can look in and see what it is actually that we do. So with that, we're going to start with the introductions. Joshua Taylor, if you would go ahead and just give a quick introduction of yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stage. I appreciate you having me on. Really
Sure
quick,
thing.
20 odd years in automotive. Started as an apprentice up here in Northern Canada. Got my license, flat rate tech for a while. Came off the bench, service advisor. I've been fixed operations. I've been general manager of a collision center. I've been in automotive marketing briefly. Now I'm back on the bench about 6 minutes from my house at a small power sports store.
Nice, wonderful. And I'm just going to go clockwise. Russell, if you would introduce yourself.
My name is Russell Wickham. I got started in the business back in 1997, following up on a hobby of mine. Loved to work on cars. Very first project I ever did was trying to get nasty moldy carpet out of an 85 Camaro. Ended up having to take the whole dash apart to do that. Got done, had one screw left over. And I said, I can do this. So from there, pursued the career. Did it for about 5 years, got out, did construction, joined the Army, served the country, came back in after being downrange and ended up deciding that I was going to pursue the career like we pursued training in the Army, because in the Army, you overcome a lack of experience by hard, realistic training. So jumped in, pursued everything they would let me have, and 10 years later, I'm a General Motors world-class technician working here in Pampa, Texas.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you for your service as well.
Yes, sir.
Marshall, we're going to come over to you, and interested to hear how your career is turning out and how you got started.
Yeah, so, my name is Marshall Sheldon, and I've been a diesel mechanic for just shy of 15 years. I started similar to Russell, except for I didn't have previous experience, but in the Marine Corps, they have, I was in Motor T, so I was around the trucks. When I got out, I needed a job, and I was comfortable being around the big trucks, so I got my first break at a fleet as a wash hand. And then after the fleet, I went to a dealer, and similar deal as Russell, I just gobbled up as much training as they would allow me to do. And here we are.
Very nice. And my uncle was a tank mechanic a long time ago in Germany. So I guess it runs in our family. I've got multiple family members and people I grew up with that work in the industry as well. So it's kind of interesting how it's almost contagious in that way. I'm going to start with the first question we put together, and this wasn't something that I kind of come through fly by night. When I was a service director at a Jaguar and Land Rover dealership, our COO had this thing that he had come up with. And basically it was, what's the one thing that the customer really wants from you? Or what's that one thing that you could change to make things better? And we used to ask all of our clients that would come through and they would have their vehicles worked on, on top of and over and above the CSI thing that would get sent out to them in an email. I always had the receptions area ask them what was one thing. Is there something else we could be doing? Is there like pickup and drop off? Is it concierge service? What is it that we could do better? And I think that really helped our business. We had just opened and it started out like third in the country. And by the time we were 9 months open, we were first in the country. And of course, that's easy to do when you just open your doors, especially with a Jaguar Land Rover dealership. But I kind of want to go along those lines and just go to each one of you, and you can go in any order that you want. What's one thing that's changed the most since you've been in your career that you've noticed? If you had to look back over it, what's one thing that's changed the most? You can go first, Russell.
For me, the biggest change is how we diagnose communication circuits. Because when I first started out, it was pretty simple, one wire, couple wires. Now there's as many as 8 or 10 communication circuits. There's a serial data gateway module that separates the communications that communicate over the air versus the rest of the vehicle to help provide security so that the car can't be hacked, things like that. That adds a lot of complication to how you go about diagnosing communications.
Definitely. Yep. I've definitely witnessed that myself. Who wants to go next?
I'll hit it.
I have.
All right. Well, we'll save you the best for last, Josh, because you're going to come out with something really thoughtful. I feel like I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that, over the years, like when I first got into the industry, it seemed like the shop that I worked at, they could put an application or they could put a want ad out and they'd have 4 or 5 applicants by the end of the week minimum.
Sure.
They might have more than that. And I feel like that's something that has changed a lot, the amount of technicians that are available in the market of all abilities. I'm talking, from the journeyman to the apprentice level technicians. There's just doesn't seem to be a lot of them. Not a lot of people that want to do what we do. I feel like sometimes it can go all the way out to a month. We can put a want ad out and get one person come and apply in a month, whereas we used to get a lot more.
Do you think that's a cultural shift, or what do you think causes that?
I mean,
if you had to guess.
If I had to guess, I feel like, probably some type of cultural shift would probably be appropriate. But the blue collar lifestyle is a hard lifestyle. It doesn't matter what trade you're in, and I feel like people always err to the easiest route to make money. And this is a hard lifestyle sometimes.
Sure thing. Joshua?
To give a shout out to Joe Chambers, Chicago, Illinois is the hardest city in the continental U.S. to try and find technicians and blue collared folks. You're right. It's hard to find. I went with this. I made some notes on this, Robert. And
Sure.
The first thing that came to mind was not necessarily technical, but what empathetically related. Learning that I got lucky early with leadership and my shop foreman in my very first job as an apprentice. I got super lucky, and I didn't realize it then. And I've only just in the last year trying to, compound my learning on soft skills, that having a high value leader is the single most important thing any mechanic anywhere can have and choose for. I didn't know that then. I wished I didn't know that then, and I would have taken as much advantage of it then as possible. But the second thing I wrote, and I went technical on the second thing, was the number of modules. I remember in 2001, the first time really thinking about cars, 2000, 2001, really thinking about cars. There might have been one. You might have had 2. You might even have 3 at most. You got, body control module. You got instrument cluster, and you got ECM. Now you've got 100, 150 modules. Sometimes if you go AG, it gets more. It's the number of computers that have to communicate, and to Russell's point, the variance in the amount of communication that has to happen.
Definitely would agree with that. I was going to go with when I started was 92, 93, and was just on the cusp of OBD1, and then OBD2 came along. And OBD2 came along, and it was really nice, actually. I mean, I thought it was one of the better things that they probably ever done in the industry. But
Yep.
the thing that really got me was the information. Started with Mitchell on Demand, which started with Mitchell back in the day when it was books. And you literally got 20 books that was, everything from whatever you could think of, automotive. Then it went to CDs, and it went to DVD ROMs. And then, of course, now it's on the cloud. Everything's, supported by the internet. But that would be the one thing I think that just the actual information and the amount of information that's actually out there that you can get for a vehicle. It used to be if you went to a Chevrolet dealership with Russell would know, if you brought in an old vehicle that was just an early fuel injected vehicle, you took it to one guy or two guys in the shop, they almost always knew what was wrong with it. You can't do that any longer. It's the information has exploded to the point where you might have memorized what the firing order was on some, different engine or something, but you can't do that any longer. It's like there's so much stuff that you would have to take with you. It would never happen. So really good stuff. All really good. The next one was, what one thing would make your current position both better and more profitable to your company if you could change one thing? Sticking with the theme, if you could go around and just decide on, I could get better information, I could get a better service writer, I could get, I could change something within myself. What do you think it would be? And we'll start this time with Joshua Taylor.
Where I'm at, like I said, I'm not a small shop 6 minutes from my house, so the luxury of the commute is there. But I'm at a shop that was built for the owner. The owner's 5'3", and at the time of its building, it was just him. And that means there's space for 5 motorcycles.
Right.
But it's winter time, so there's a couple project bikes in there for the winter, and there's now kind of 4 of us working in a shop built for one. And I can palm the ceiling above where I work, so I can't lift bikes with a windshield all the way up. I can't trying to move around. So if I were to want a bigger shop, the luxury is, in theory, about 9 months from now, there will be. So
nice.
It's coming. It's coming. It's going to make everybody's life so much easier. We're going to be able to not have to move things in and out into the mud, and it's just going to be altogether a better experience for everybody.
Follow-up question for that. Is there, being in Canada, do you get quite a bit of snow where you're at? Are you rural, or are you in the city area?
Rural. I'm 2 hours
Rural.
north of Toronto. I'm right on the bay. So we have our own little microclimate. The irony is that big storm that came through there recently hit everybody with like 3 feet of snow, and we didn't get any. But we got 70-mile-an-hour winds. So it was still a storm, and we couldn't see anything. We just didn't get the snow everybody else did.
So a lot of snowmobile action going on.
Yes. The unfortunate thing, for the last 5 days, it's rained. So all the trails are now closed again.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, especially for a snowmobile power sports store.
Yeah, definitely. Russell, how about you? What's one thing that you'd be able to, that you would change if you could change, that would make your job both profitable and better for you?
That is actually a question that I did not come up with a good answer for when I was considering, because, for me, maybe more reasonable labor times from the OEM, because I get in some warranty jobs and I just know that I'm going to take twice as long as they pay, and it's frustrating.
Definitely. Well, that's definitely something that you're not 100% in control of, but I know that you and I have spoken a couple different times through some comments, and you've seen my comments, and I'm sure you've seen, I've seen yours. You were kind of the outlier for me. I'm very pro flat rate, because I worked in the aftermarket for 18 years at, Goodyear stores and that type of thing, tire stores, and ended up being diag tech for a long time in that type of, that environment. But one of the things that I couldn't believe is when I got into a decent store that took care of their employees, I was killing myself doing 40 hours a week and not really getting paid for what I did. So I come into a flat rate store and I was making all kinds of money. It was trying my best to beat book time by half, because if I could do it in half, I'm getting twice the money. And as long as you're
Right.
fixing it right the first time, it was awesome. I loved it. But watching and listening and reading the comments that you make and knowing a couple of General Motors technicians, because it does vary by manufacturer. I went to a Volkswagen store, and Volkswagen at the time was pretty decent. It wasn't terrible. I mean, I think a front wheel disc replacement and brake pad change was like 1.3, 1.5. So it was pretty nice. Yeah, look at Joshua's face. But I tried to hire a guy out of a 1.2, 1.2.
Dodge 0.2.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there's just no, and this wasn't very long ago. I was at Volkswagen like 5 years ago, but seeing your comments, I tried to hire a guy out of a General Motors store that was down the road from us to a Volkswagen store, and he was doing the ring jobs at the time on the 3.6 liters, and he's like, I'm losing my rear end. He's like, there's 16 hours in this job and it pays 13.2 now, and he said, I can't do it, and he says, I'm the only guy that they have doing it. So he's like, there's no way that somebody that walked into this that had never done it before, they wouldn't be able to even get anywhere near book time. It'd be 20 hours. So it's definitely something that needs to be looked at by the entire industry. And I think that does stop a lot of people from entering it. Marshall, how about you? What's one thing that you could change?
Well, so my current position is I'm mobile.
Okay.
I work in the field, so I'm a field technician. So one thing that I felt would make things better for me, and then also more profitable for my company, would be like social media self-promotion, or just like self-promotion in general, like personalized thank you cards. Russell and I have bounced ideas back and forth about the personalized thank you cards. Because like if I go to a customer's location and I get done doing something, you could do like the little tent style fold up, thanks for your business. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that sets you apart, especially in a dealer environment, or in a highly competitive mobile environment. You know, setting yourself apart from your competitors is difficult. You know, you have to add value. They can have anybody come fix stuff, but you got to add value to that customer besides just fixing the equipment for them. So
exactly. Let me ask you this, Marshall, as a follow-up. Do you find it, do you have someone that sells the work for you, or do you sell your own work like I do? Or how does that work? And then basically the question is do you find it better for the client, or do they seem like they trust you more since they're talking directly to the person that's going to be working on their vehicle?
Right at the end there, I feel like they trust me more because it's me working on it. I'm there. Right. I see everything. I'm able to, and you know, having that face-to-face interaction is really important. I feel like to the customer, they get to meet the technician, the person. They feel comfortable with my ability because of our conversation, and I feel like that helps a lot. And then to the beginning part of your question, I find all of my own customers and all of my own work.
That's how I do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I end up doing with myself. It's just a very small operation, you know, keep a couple guys on subcontract, and then I run out each day and do what I have to do to make sure, you know, it keeps afloat. So very good stuff, guys. The other question I had was, you know, what one technology could you guys pick up, whether it's a scan tool, lab scope, or a new information system that might bring you, you know, more information for what you do, a multimeter. What's one thing that you guys could change on the technology side that you would want to do to make your business better, to make you guys better? Russell, let's start with you this time.
Hands down, learning how to properly use a lab scope. Because like I was telling about how the serial data gateway module prevents us, the tools that GM gives me to use, I cannot see what goes on behind that serial data gateway module. The scan tool communicates directly to it. What happens behind it, I can't see. With a
Right.
lab scope, I can find a place, tap in, and then I can see what's going on. I had a truck recently that had a low speed network that was going down. I ended up finding that behind the back seat, I could tap in on both sides of the serial data gateway module. So got in behind that seat, tapped in on both sides, and then started wiggle testing wires until eventually I found where it was shorting out. But having the scope and being able to see what's going on in the communication circuit, I have talked to other technicians that are more advanced than I am. They've used that to diagnose mechanical concerns. He was using a inducer placed on getting the secondary waveform on an ignition coil, and knew that he
Yep.
had low compression. That's beyond my ability, and I would love to learn how to do that, because it would allow me to much quicker, especially with these complicated intakes that are covering stuff up, to be able to get at it without having to take the intake off, and be able to crank it and see what's going on would be huge. So, I know there's a level of training out there that's beyond what I've gotten. I would love to take it to the next step, to really be able to use this technology to see what's going on without having to physically get into the car, but to actually see from the waveforms and things like that.
Definitely. As a follow-up, Russell, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, because I think the training side of it, and as far as lab scopes are probably the crystal ball of, having anything that you can use on a modern vehicle that you can cut your diagnostic time in half most of the time, is the lab scope. Does your dealership have a lab scope, or do you have to provide your own, or how's that work where you're at?
The dealership has a picoscope that we got through GM for
General
doing
Motors.
noise and vibration. They have recently sent probes, but there's no training on how to use it. I have a Snap-on Modus that has a 2-channel lab scope in it, and I just have learned by trial and error with that, just for seeing waveforms and things like that.
Very nice. Just a small short plug for myself. I was able to just write a technical portion and article for Motor Age magazine that'll come out in February on using a lab scope to actually diagnose a starter circuit. And with I got a Picoscope 4425A, so it's got the smart connectors on it. When you hook them up,
Mhm.
it basically does all of your auto settings. And of course, you can go in and change it with the software, but that'll be coming out in February in Motor Age magazine. So that's pretty exciting. I think it's going to be awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Joshua, what about you? What's one piece of technology, or one thing that you could use that you don't currently have that you think would help you in your business?
I think I went software side, and kind of broad, because I'm actually talking about education, kind of an extension of Russell.
Mhm.
Education as a whole for mechanics is lacking badly.
No.
Unless you're at a branded store in Canada, training is hard to come by. And though in Canada it works a little different than it does down south of the border. We have to be a licensed apprentice or a licensed technician of some description within the trade, whatever trade you're in,
Right.
outside of automotive, in order to work on stuff. I had the opportunity to spend 8 weeks at motorcycle repair school very, very recently, and the curriculum is easily 20 years out of date. There was no ABS.
Wow.
There was no CAN bus. There was no, and half of my fuels and electrical course was uncarbureted.
Wow.
So to say that it's out of date is an understatement. So I would
Definitely.
imagine that the kind of courses that Russell's talking about trying to get to is not only still few and far between, but hard to get into because class sizes will be small. Software is coming at a rate that we can't fathom. The new technology is coming even faster. We
Right.
have to be able to diagnose, as we're talking about, whether it's through a scope or not. We have to be able to diagnose. And in order to do that, we need to understand how the systems work. And in order to know how the systems work, we need to have the education to back that up. So
Yeah,
there
the
needs to
theory
be
and operation.
more opportunities for the education, and the education needs to be more accessible. So technology-wise, it's pure education. Utilize the tools that are out there. There's all kinds of places to put courses for OEMs to just say, here's what we want to train people on, make it accessible. It's there. It might come down to us mechanics to actually have to make it. So, and
Right.
you're proving that, Robert. You've just written an article on it.
Yep. I follow a bunch of guys with the Trained by Techs, Brandon Steckler and a couple other guys, and he's the technical editor at Motor Rage. But Facebook groups, just a quick tip: if you guys have not been into any of the Facebook groups, it's like a forum, but the Facebook groups typically are pretty good at getting good, clean information. So if you're ever on there, if you go to that, go and find, in your industry, find some of the guys that are doing that every day. Some of those guys are so great. They just put stuff out for free, and it's so awesome that they do that. So, Marshall, let's move on to you. What about technology on your side? What's something that you could use, especially being mobile like I am? I know that it can create different challenges. I can never see the screen on my laptop anywhere I'm at. It never matters where the light's from or the sun's at in the sky. It doesn't matter. You can't see it. You're always readjusting and trying to find it. But what's something that you've something that would help you in your business?
So, continuing to tip the hat to the mobile side, a lot of the mega fleets in my industry, so the customer base that I have are not, mom and dad dropping their car off. They're people going up and down the interstate in semi trucks, So there's a lot of owner operators, and then there's a lot of that may only own one truck or two trucks, or maybe even 3 or 4. But mainly those customers are very large mega fleets. Those mega fleets utilize a software that my OEM and several OEMs utilize, where they can schedule repairs or get on your schedule in general. And that's fantastic for them, because they can get right in on the schedule, and they bring the truck in. They already know they're coming, and yada yada. But in the mobile side, I don't really have that with my customers. They call me personally. I put them on my schedule, and I spend a lot of time working my schedule. Sunday nights, I look at my schedule for the following week, and I have to plan everything out accordingly. I don't have the opportunity to utilize that awesome software because my customer base just doesn't have the buy-in for it,
Yeah.
So
I think it's one of the things we take for granted is like larger the business. A lot of times there's a lot of things that become automated and can become automated through software and through different hardwares, through different products that you can buy. We used to use Xtime. I'm sure Russell might be familiar with that. Joshua even might be in the power sports side. Xtime was really good at that kind of thing, but it was like an automator. Like you said, it was so much easier to just have someone be able to go in and make an appointment. I use Facebook in the business side of it, but literally I get so backed up, I shut mine off. I make sure that I'm the person that they speak to when I set an appointment. It helps with business. It just helps me talk to somebody, and they're talking back and forth with me, and they get a rapport built. But secondly, I would just be completely rushed if I didn't do that. I would have so many people trying to set schedules for, times that I was already going to be busy. It wouldn't work out. So definitely, it's crazy.
Yeah, and the system, it helps with your repair orders. It helps with your quotes. Like all the quotes are all in there. Sometimes I have to do mine on, like an Excel sheet quick, so I can just email it to the customer, just because they don't utilize that system. And so that makes it more time consuming for me, where it would be pretty sweet if I had customers that did that.
Exactly. I want to go with one quick one, just real quick, because I see Ted has bumped back in. We'll wrap it up with this last one, action plans. What's something that you feel like you guys could do in your business? What's something that you feel like you could get management to agree to, dealer principals, owners, operators? What's something you think that you could get them to say yes to that might help you in the future? Joshua, we'll start with you first.
I'm going to try and keep this in short, because I wrote, this is the longest one that I answered. Better, cheaper, more easy access to proactive mental and physical wellness programs, not reactive programs. There was 12 million reports of thoughts of suicide in 2020, 1.2 million attempts, and 46,000 suicides in 2020. Wellness, care, empathy, proactive mental wellness programs, I think, needs to be the pivotal goal for 2023 for leaders. We need folks in stores fixing cars, trucks, SUVs, boats, planes, trains, and automobiles. Without that empathetic leadership culture, it's not going to happen.
Very succinct and very poignant. Exactly. I would have to completely agree with that. Marshall, how about you? What's an action plan, something that you can take action with this coming week or this coming month or maybe in this year that would help your business, help your customers?
For sure, there's always more training. You know, I got so much training I need to do. I stay up on it, but it's always coming out so fast. The new trucks are coming out now, and the dashes are crazy, all digital, and there's just so much training. I know on my end, I could do a better job of staying up on the online stuff that I need to, and my company can send me off to school. You know. So, and the other technicians as well. You know, can't forget all the boys out there and the gals.
The Teslaification of the industry, it's definitely coming. We're going to have iPads everywhere. So, Russell, with you, what's an action plan that you could put into place that you could get your DP or your GM on board with that you could move forward and help your customers and help yourself out with?
The biggest thing that I've got going on is as a trainer, it's finding and getting my guys into classes, not just GM classes, but classes that can help them be better at their job.
Right. Totally agree. Wow. Ted, welcome back.
Robert, I got to come to you with that very same question. One action plan that you want to share with us tonight.
Two things. I want to open a second truck this year, and I'd like to hire another person. Those two things have been probably my biggest hindrances over the past 6 months, just because as soon as you put your face out there and your name out there, and if people do see that your ability is good, you're honest with people, and you're competitive with your pricing, you automatically start gaining customers, and your client base goes up. The word of mouth is amazing. The internet's a wonderful thing as long as you're not taking advantage of people, and it just blows up. So I think those two things, another person and another truck.
Gentlemen, fascinating conversation, not nearly enough time. Three very, very different perspectives. I want to thank Russell and Marshall for your service. Thank you so much. Joshua, boy, you gave us a lot of information. I was taking notes the whole time, everybody, with all three. And then, of course, Robert Stage. Robert, great job. And not nearly enough time. We're going to have to come back, Robert, and pick it up with some of the other questions that you put together. It goes pretty quick, doesn't it?
Would be happy to. Yeah, it certainly does. You never have enough time.
Well, I think this is a stellar panel, and this is just the beginning. So I want to thank, on behalf of the Fixed Ops community, Joshua Taylor. Great to have you. What an honor to have you here on the roundtable with us today. Russell Wickham, nice to meet you. Wow, great information. Thank you, my friend. And Marshall Sheldon, learned a lot. So thank you. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think it's probably the first time we've had a true diesel technician, on the roundtable. So long overdue and great information. Robert Stage, you did not disappoint. So again, I
appreciate
another
that.
great panel, Robert.
Yep. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Robert Stage, Joshua Taylor, Russell Wickham, and Marshall Sheldon, the future of technical repair, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.